returning to this book today by Gabriel Bunch, the Orthodox Hermit, who at the time of writing was still a Benedictine Roman Catholic hermit, been a hermit since 1980 in the Swiss Alps, I believe. This is a beautiful book. We did a review earlier on it about when to pray, where to pray, how to pray, based on the Patristic tradition. Not so much on the later hesychastic developments, shall we say, of the Philokalia and whatnot, although they are referenced in here, but specifically the earliest patristic tradition. No wonder he became Orthodox, taking that approach. But he also has some beautiful things to apply to that. Sometimes, when one reads the Philokalia, and the monks will tell you this, not all of it is applicable to us ordinary working folk, if we can use the term ordinary, in any real sense in this spectacular creation of ours. But sometimes it's very, very complex, and we can think, well, this is just not for me, keeping the mind on one word, on one phrase, over and over again. How am I supposed to be a surgeon, teacher, doctor, whatever it is? How am I supposed to interact in the world? And here's a very good section on this that basically looks at the idea that the early Egyptian monks, they worked, multiple hours in the day. In fact, sometimes even with their prayers, they didn't leave off the common work. They would be making baskets or pairing fishing nets and things like that to make a living. They had to make a living to survive. And also they found that this work was cathartic. It was good for them. It focused their minds, and they learned, what they did was they learned psalms off by heart. The Egyptian monks, he says, had 2 set times to pray only in the day, which was the Vespers service. They would do 12 psalms, followed by a prayer, a short prayer, and the night prayer. The night prayer would be some 4 to 6 hours long, from say just before midnight until the sunrise. But they would continue to do their common work during that time of prayer. These are the monks in Skeet, for example, he mentions Skeetis, and so clearly working. This is his central thesis. Working isn't the problem. And he goes on to say, for us busy, work people out in the world, we can make prayer our work. Those who have an intention to pray will be able to pray. Maybe not perpetually, with a perpetual formula going on over and over, but with intentions set, perhaps moments set aside for a bit of silence and prayer, although the author does say that that's not essential either. And thus one's life becomes a prayer, and this was the intention of the early patristic fathers. This was their intention, to become prayer. Their whole life would be prayer. Not necessarily vocal prayer, not necessarily formulaic prayer, but a respiration, a breath heading to God from the deepest heart. And he's got beautiful some quotes in here. I'll find this section. Yes, so he's going to say, quoting Saint Anthony of the Desert, who said with his dying words to his fellow monks, breathe Christ at all times and believe in him. Breathe Christ at all times. And he quotes then Proverbs 20:27 and Evagrius Ponticus, who talks of this. Just see if I can find it. The early monks did nothing more than give themselves to this ideal, a definitive form, a stable form, which in its simplicity is accessible to anyone who seriously wants it. For every soul is by its very nature inclined to praise the Lord. Let everything that breathes praise the Lord. Is that not Psalm 150? The crown of the Psalms. If the light of the Lord is, according to Solomon, the breath of man, that's Proverbs 20:27. The breath of man is a lamp of Yahweh, is a lamp of the Lord. Sometimes translated, the spirit of man is the candle of the Lord, searching all the inward parts of the belly. That's the 1611 KJV, but the spirit, pneuma, the breath, it's all the one. It's a bivalent term. And so if we and the point that the Evagrius says on this, let's give him the word. The light of the Lord is, according to Solomon, the breath of man, and every rational nature that breathes in this light should praise the Lord. We have the Lord right there with in our breath. Intimior intimo meo, et altsur altsus meus, as St. Augustine says, more intimate than my deepest intimacy, right there searching the inward parts of the belly, of the heart. So God is in all places, and those who want to pray will find a way to make their lives more and more a prayer to God. I don't think there's much more to say on that. It's a beautiful book, very serious, very joyful, very much the work of a man who's been a hermit for a long, long time, a learned hermit, and a very spiritual hermit. He says, because, long prayers, they can be good too for the community, but they can also be a distraction in the sense of our mind is easily distracted. Whereas the ora and labora method was very much championed by those in Egypt and in the monks of Scetis, as you can see there. We only had 2 set times to pray, the Vespers and then the night prayer, but they made their lives a prayer. And hey, they rested 6 hours a day. I'm pretty sure he mentions here. As a general, I'm sure there was those who had a separate rule, but it's not completely out of reach from us, as I say, in inverted commas, ordinary folk. He then goes on to talk about the use of ejaculatory prayers from the Psalms with St. John Cassian, but also the Jesus prayer and its evolution. So it's a very good book.